Mental Health, the Up&Up. We're trying to make mental health care clear, helpful, and maybe even fun. We're chatting with licensed therapists, but this is not therapy. These are simply thoughts and ideas for you to discuss with your own therapist and to help you on your journey of complete wellness. Okay, welcome back to another episode of Mental Health, the Up&Up. Today we are talking about the Up&Up on having hard conversations and how to do that in a good way or in a more proactive way. What's a good word for this?
To increase the probability that you'll have a good outcome. I don't know what the word is for that.
That
Productive
sounded
isn't
very,
quite it.
yeah. That sounded very fancy though. I'll go with that.
I do like that because there's no guarantee that it'll work.
Right.
But it just increases the possibilities that what you want to happen will work.
It helps you know that you've done everything you could to facilitate good communication.
Mm-hmm. And I do, excuse me. And I do think that it also, if you do everything you can and it still isn't working, then to me that says something about the other person in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe having a reason why they don't want it to work or aren't willing to make it work.
Yeah.
And that's just new information about how to move forward in that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely think about some of the hard conversations I've had to have because they come up no matter how lovely your life is.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
People disagree with you, Anna?
I know. It's a shock. No, I've been thinking about hard conversations, and I've been actually over analyzing what did I really do the best that I could do recently, and realizing where I didn't, which is actually also healthy because
Yeah.
even if I did the best I could at that time, I can now see I kind of pushed a little too hard there. I kind of left that person with no choice but to do what they did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so anyway, so this will be a very interesting conversation to see if it gives me new insights for myself.
So I jotted down some thoughts, and actually, before I talk, I love putting you on the spot, Anna. What, in your mind, what makes a conversation difficult versus easy?
um for me, it's definitely something that leaves me feeling vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
makes it difficult. And what I mean by that, because that's still very vague, is something where it feels like I have something I could lose. I could lose the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I could lose access to something else by having this conversation, access to another relationship or access to a resource. Having to be, or again, in vulnerability, when I have to account for my own emotions publicly and openly, because that's difficult sometimes. I know I tend to be very open and sharing in general, and I hope that's been evident on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that, there are plenty of emotions that I struggle. If I'm mad at you, that
Mm-hmm.
emotion is harder to express. It's harder for me to say, Geraldine, I'm really, really upset with how you said, but even there I'm qualifying it. I'm upset. I'm not mad.
Uh-huh.
I'm really pissed off because you said blah blah blah.
Uh-huh.
Like that's really, really hard for me to look you in the eye and say that. And so even while I do believe in honesty, it's really hard to bring it forward in that way. Or if it's something like I'm helping someone deal with their grief and I also have grief and I tend to
Mm.
hyper focus on theirs instead of commiserating and saying I understand because I also have blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that person too is really hard for me and I tend to hyperfixate on I understand why you miss that person. That makes total sense, and so it's almost a deflection.
Mm.
So anyway, being being honest about my emotions that affect the person I'm talking to maybe is more accurate.
Yeah. And what I wrote down very similar to what you're talking about. I wrote down power differential, which kind of goes to
Mm,
what you were saying about
yeah,
fear of losing something. Um,
definitely.
and I wrote down too, I said swell of emotion because
Yeah,
when something's important to us, it's usually attached to strong emotion because emotions help remind us what's important to us.
that's what
So
those flags exist for.
yeah, if you pissed me off, um, I want to make a joke and say it's really easy for me to tell you when you piss me off, but I don't think so. But if you piss me off about, putting too much sugar in my coffee, I'm not going to have a swell of emotion,
Right.
So, and I wrote down both not knowing the other person well, so that uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then I also put down knowing that other person too well, like you were talking about
Hmm.
grief, where you're wanting to protect them or not wanting
Yeah.
to cause problems for them.
Yeah.
Uh, and uh, the other thing that I didn't write down, but I'm thinking of right now, is um, I'm going to say fear, the fear of not being heard or not understood like
Yeah.
that, right? Am I going to present this in a way that that is actually going to make sense to the other person, either
Yes.
doubting your own skills in communication or their skills in communication or just how complex the or emotional the topic is.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
one's very tough. I used to believe that the entire problem with the world was that people just didn't communicate well.
Uh-huh.
And so I've gone through my life doing my absolute utmost to communicate to the very best of my ability because if they could just understand me, then we wouldn't have a problem. And it's not true.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Communicating well absolutely helps. Like that's the whole point of this what we're talking about today
Hmm.
is if you do the best you can to communicate and to make some forward actions and it still doesn't work, then that wasn't the problem.
That
There are other variables.
yes, that is exactly one of the points in a difficult conversation is if you feel like you've done everything you can and felt like you communicated reasonably and they're still not getting it or responding the way you want them to respond, then the problem isn't clear communication.
Right.
I love this, something that one of my professors told me. The whole class in graduate school was very nervous about writing like more academic papers, like from journals, not
Mm,
just from magazines or websites, like from official journals, and we were
yeah.
all very intimidated. And he said, you know, read the journal article once. If you don't understand it, read it again. And if you
Hmm.
don't understand it the third time, they're a bad writer.
Thank you. I was going to say total rabbit trail, but reading scholarly or legal documents is a very big comprehension gap for me.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think it's all just me. I can read Shakespeare and I can read the King James Bible and understand exactly what it's saying.
Ah.
I have a high comprehension level as a rule, but
Mm-hmm.
legalese or scholarly prose, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
really what to call it, that really is gobbledygook for me.
Yeah.
And I know that there's probably some things I could do to help myself, but I also think that there is a societal push to make sure that those sound different to make them sound important,
Yeah.
and I don't like
I
that.
Yeah, I agree. Legalese, if it's done well, I actually really appreciate because each word has a very specific meaning with
Mhm.
no nuance,
Mhm.
right? Um, but the more formal journals, I do think uh, people, maybe the writers, have the same concerns that as students we had. Is they're maybe thinking, oh, if I don't make this sound really good, then people aren't going to
Take me
take me
seriously.
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to share. I took a class. It was a continuing education class, no grade, no nothing. you know, other than learning. You're doing it for no other reason than learning the content.
Wonderful
And we
goal.
had, yeah, that would be great. But, you weren't going to fail. You weren't going to
Yes. Yeah.
uh, be critiqued. And we had discussions. We would do some reading or, you know, do some exercise, study something, and then post on the discussion board. And even the instructor said, these are for discussions. This isn't like for you to recap the 5 points that you just read in that chapter. This is truly just a discussion. It's not graded. And
Don't just
still,
regurgitate. I love that. Please don't.
yes, and still, I would say at least half of the discussions were people saying, on page 27 of Collins', seminal work on,
Uh huh.
whatever. And it's like, you know what? Why are you doing that? So yeah, I would say things like, I would be much more informal
Mm
and say things like, "I don't think Judy Garland would like that," and
hmm.
just random, uh, truly what my thoughts were, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and yeah, it was very interesting how I don't know if it was conditioning or trying to impress someone, how many people really went very, very esoteric and formal and used big words when a
Yeah.
small word would suffice.
Yeah.
And as they say, pretentious, moi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do think some of it is instinctive in just because I'm thinking of the times when I've wanted to come off as mature and
Hmm.
intellectual. I'll use bigger words or more formal grammar.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I also want to make sure people understand me. So I always
Yeah.
try to qualify it with that. I don't know.
Yeah. Some of it too in scholarly journals is there's terminology specific to that discipline.
And in a scholarly journal, you should expect to come across some of that because they're writing it for other people in the field who should know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
So I can understand there being an educational threshold necessary to access that.
Hmm.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Also, however, in scholarly papers, what I was taught is that you the first time you use any term, you define it. Like
Yes.
uh, whatever, like we're measuring beauty, and beauty means blank, 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 or
Right.
so um, kind of bringing this around to difficult conversations
Mm-hmm.
is to be clear, to make sure each of you has the same understanding of particular words or concepts.
Or what the problem is.
Yes, yes.
One of the big marriage advices, that was bad grammar, speaking of. One of the bigger pieces of marriage advice we have
Uh-huh.
gotten was make sure that when you're arguing, discussing things, that it's both of you against the problem, not you against the other.
I love that.
And
Yes.
so and so that applies here is defining what the actual problem is. If you're
Yeah.
going in to have a hard conversation with anybody, it doesn't have to be your spouse. I think it's important to remember that the goal is better relationship and forward motion. And so it's not you against them. It's
Hmm.
it's you have this issue that's come up. It's kind of like
Hmm.
what we talk about with parenting, separating the behavior from the child of
Yes. Yeah.
I love my kid, I do not love when my kid does X.
And then to get your kid to say, X gets you in trouble with me, so we both don't like X.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's partly externalizing what the issue is, but it's also just reminding yourselves internally that the relationship is what's important.
Yeah.
So,
And if the difficult conversation isn't like a relationship, the relationship part isn't what you want to preserve. Like I'm thinking about employee boss or
right.
salesperson customer,
Mhm.
which I guess you do want the relationship to find something that is important to both of you, either to fight against or agree on.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it quite this way, but if you're asking for a raise, to say to your boss, well, I know you want to keep valuable employees, and
Right.
I want you to keep valuable employees, so give me
Hmm.
more money.
I
Don't
would
say
like
it
to
that way.
continue being a valuable employee.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, one of the things to think about in having that difficult conversations is to um, appeal to their goals as
Hmm.
well as your goals. And going back to the parent-child example, for a parent to say to a child, well, you want to stop getting in trouble, right? You want to
Hmm.
get me to stop yelling at you, right?
Hmm.
Which of course they do, you know.
It's
Um,
not fun for anyone, I promise.
yeah, yeah. Uh, so difficult conversations. Um, it's very easy to get distracted during difficult conversations
Yes.
for a lot of reasons. So, what I suggest people do is to write down no more than three top items,
Okay.
one or two or three. So, if, Anna, it bothers me that you stole my money and uh, stole my car, and it also bothers me that your haircut. I don't like your haircut. It's like pick the top one or two or three.
Yeah.
You know, there may be many things that are very important, but you're not going to do more than one or two or three. I compare it to juggling. You know, if you can juggle If you can juggle one ball, great. You can juggle two balls, great. You can juggle three balls, great. If you can juggle three balls, but you throw in a fourth ball, all the balls drop,
Hmm.
not just the extra. So you want to keep that down to a very small number.
Well, and this addresses the issue that a lot of people have in hard conversations where it feels like someone's come to you with a laundry list of everything you've ever done wrong in your life
Hmm.
or in your work job
Yeah.
your work.
Relationship,
There we go.
whatever.
I can't
Yeah.
think of words right now, but and so limiting yourself to prioritizing which
Yes.
ones to work on at any given moment helps to not overwhelm the other
Yes.
person or yourself,
Yeah.
and it gives you actionable things to work on and make some forward motion, but it doesn't give them too many things to fix all at once.
Yeah. And you can have it that those things, if they're problems, they go away. Those smaller items either go away because you fix those top two or three items,
Hmm.
or they remain, which means you have a next conversation.
Right. Yeah.
But it does go to when people uh, hear things that another person doesn't like, the tendency to get defensive is so big, you know.
Yeah.
Um, well, I stole from you, Geraldine, but don't you understand?
Yeah.
You know, I've been watching some procedurals lately, and I think this is actually true, but the murderer always says, "I had no choice."
Hmm.
They were blackmailing me. I had no choice. It's like, well, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But it's trying to excuse our own behavior, or the person you're talking to
Hmm.
just really has that tendency to excuse or explain their behavior.
And not to excuse their excuse me, but it is a very natural defense mechanism. We
Yeah,
all do it. We've talked
yeah.
before about how for me, if I know inside myself that what I did was wrong, it's fairly easy for me to come to you, or it's fairly easy for me when you come to me and say, Anna, you did that wrong, and I've already quantified that. It's easy for
Hmm.
me to say, you're right, I'm sorry, I can eat my crow. But
Hmm.
if you come to me with something that I haven't even acknowledged as a problem yet, then that knee jerk excuse you
Yeah,
is right
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, very common, which is why some of those things we already kind of hinted at is to kind of appeal to what they want too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Anna, I know how important it is to you to be a good friend,
Mm-hmm.
and you were a real jerk last Saturday, you know?
I'm
It,
so sorry. Yeah. No,
but
but
do you see,
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
is important to you to be a good friend.
it
So
is.
again, I'm exaggerating for effect, but
You got me though, even though this is entirely fictitious.
they're like, "What did I do on Saturday? I didn't even talk to her." Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. That makes sense. And so, I guess what I'm pulling from this is to make sure to leave space and allowance for them to work through that initial defensive feeling.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I like the idea either with the defensiveness or uh, trying to distract, and again, not on purpose, or on purpose, it doesn't matter, but kind of getting off target.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have this concept I call fogging.
Mm-hmm.
So fog looks substantial, but you can walk right through it.
Yeah.
So when they say something like, but I didn't mean it, you can say, I'm sure you didn't. And just, you don't have to address that. I'm sure you didn't mean it, or I didn't think you at all that you meant it. And you stole
Getting
my
back to
car.
fixing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when things like that come up, if you push harder against them and say, no, 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 um, the conversation will stall. But if you agree with them and say, yeah, that may be true. Or if they say, well, you did it too, you can say, I do sometimes do that. And, I do
But right
sometimes
at
steal.
this minute, we're talking
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And if you agree first, and there's always something to agree with. So if they say, well, you're mean to bringing this to me, you can say, it is hard to hear these kind of things. And I feel, yeah, I do feel bad bringing this to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important,
Mm-hmm.
So, or again, the very common one is, well, last week you did the same thing. Yeah, I did do the same thing. Okay. And, so to acknowledge that and then just walk right through it.
Okay.
You look thoughtful.
I'm applying what we're talking about to the 52 million bad conversations I've had.
Is this something that you think might have helped in those conversations or just things you've noticed in those
It's
conversations?
something that I have instinctually done before. Um, I tend to do more the yes, you're right, that is a problem. Be that as it may, we still have to deal with this right here.
Hmm.
And so I'm very my mo tends to be very much more direct on that side of it of no, 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 we're staying on this topic, actually
Hmm.
saying no, 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 we're staying on this topic,
Hmm.
which may seem a bit more dismissive of that first part of you're right, however we're staying on this topic. So
Yeah.
I'm overanalyzing now of.
No, I think you're analyzing exactly appropriately. And it goes back to acknowledging that feeling because when someone says, oh, you did that last week, or you're mean to bring that to me, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably not actually imparting information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's difficult to hear bad things. You know that you're not perfect and probably do make the same mistakes that you're talking to them about,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or similar mistakes, or if they say, well, that's not a big deal, they're not actually giving you that information. It may
Right.
sound like information, but really what they're doing is identifying a feeling, or actually not identifying the feeling, having a feeling and having it come out in a way that sounds like information.
Mm-hmm.
So you did it too. The feeling is embarrassment, maybe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a big deal. The feeling is avoidance, maybe, or lack of insecurity, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So to soften that with a yeah, yeah, that might be right. At least leaves room for that feeling rather than simply responding to the points. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you did that last Saturday. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. That's not the point. You did
Mm-hmm.
that last Saturday. Hey, we all make big mistakes. I do too,
Mm-hmm.
because that addresses more that sense of um,
Embarrassment,
yeah,
insecurity,
yeah,
all of that. Yeah.
yeah. So those things don't disappear during difficult conversations, those strong feelings, and actually those strong feelings usually get bigger during
Yeah.
difficult conversations. And um, I was going to say, in our world, I don't know if this is cultural or it's the same in other countries or other areas, I don't know. But a common defense against really strong emotions is intellectualizing,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Oh, very
is,
much.
yeah, explaining, uh, you know, um, well, I had to rob that bank. I had no alternative. Don't you understand? It's like, well, you're just trying to address those feelings of
Mm-hmm.
guilt and guilt is often a feeling that does come up, but it's hard for a lot of people to say, "Oh, yes, I am guilty of that." Instead,
Mm.
they'll say, "You're making too big a deal of it, what I did," or
Pop culture reference, because
"Yes,
me. In the show Ted Lasso, this is gonna be
uh-huh,
spoilers. Um, the lady who owns the club,
uh-huh,
Rebecca,
uh-huh,
and her right hand man who helps her manage the club, Leslie.
uh-huh,
He's calling her on her crap
uh-huh,
because she's been doing machinations this entire time trying to destroy the club just to get back at somebody.
uh-huh,
And he finally tells her, "Oh my God, you have to stop. What
uh-huh,
you're doing is causing harm to people who have done nothing to you, and it's not okay.
mhm,
And I have to tell you, as your friend, this sucks. You have to stop." And she blows up at him about, well, where was all this moral outrage when you were helping my husband cheat on me and you were
mhm,
taking me out to lunch while he was doing stuff.
mhm,
And in the moment, he says, "You're right. No, you're right. And I
mhm,
have to live with that, and I should have to live with that, and that's my cross to bear. But you still need to stop."
yeah,
And he absolutely acknowledged what he had done wrong,
yeah,
and he acknowledged that it wasn't okay, but he kept it on topic.
mhm,
So, and
and
I love the way it was played in that.
yeah, and I would add to that in a perfect world that he could say, "And I would hate for you to have to carry a cross of your own.
Mm,
I would
yeah,
hate for you. I don't want you to hurt like I'm hurting, knowing how much I've hurt you in the past.
yeah,
And I know how kind and compassionate you are.
mm-hmm,
And I know someday you are going to realize how much you're hurting people. And boy, I just don't want you to have that horrible experience."
yeah,
Yeah. Which, yeah, kind of goes to look at their goals as
yeah.
well. And nobody wants to feel bad. Anna, I know you want to be fair. So please give me more pie, you know, whatever, you know,
Right.
or Anna, I know you really like me to be happy. So let me eat the entire pie.
Oh my,
Yeah, you
all
probably
the
would,
time.
but
I don't know. It
yeah,
depends on the pie. We just
I,
we just had we've been getting the sun chips. I like the garden salsa ones.
uh-huh.
And we were shopping and I was grabbing a bag and Steven says, "Okay, so if I get a different flavor, will you leave it alone or will you try to eat my chips as well as your chips?" And I'm like, I don't know the answer to that, and that's probably a problem.
Yes, that probably means yes, I'll eat those too.
I've been good, but yeah, it is a struggle.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. Um, so just like simple recaps, no more than three issues
Yeah.
at a time.
Mm-hmm.
If you juggle three balls and you throw a fourth in there, all the balls fell down.
Yeah.
Um, to fog through those excuses or defenses, acknowledge
Deflections.
deflections, whether they're on purpose or not.
Mm-hmm.
Someone may deflect, uh, misunderstanding what you're talking about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Anna, I really want that whole pie, and you say, "Oh, because you haven't had enough calories today." And I'm there like, "Oh yeah, you're not deflecting on purpose, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not that I haven't had enough calories. I get plenty of calories. It's that I really want the pie."
Right.
So to just fog through those deflections with some understanding that it's not about the intellectual content, it's usually about the emotional content,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
which the other person's emotions are going to increase, and because it's a difficult conversation, yours are going to as well.
Mm-hmm.
So to figure out a way to manage your own emotions as they may swell up too big. So,
Yeah.
uh, and then it just kind of devolves into an argument or a yelling match. And whereas if the emotions were set aside, not
Mm-hmm.
ignored, not suppressed, but just set aside, that's for later. We're doing this problem solving now, and later on we can cry in each other's arms or, write nasty letters to each other. But right now, let's work on this issue.
This is a place where the over intellectualizing could be helpful for you
Yes.
using
Mm-hmm.
that coping skill.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's picking a tool out of your toolbox. It's
Right.
not ignoring your emotions. It's
Mm-hmm.
saying, I need a hammer, not a screwdriver, or I need a screwdriver, not a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that hammer in your toolbox, just not right now.
Right.
Yeah. That said, hey world, let's just all handle our emotions well. Well,
Oh, okay.
yeah, good advice. Uh, so there's a couple of ways to, again, increase the chance that emotions aren't going to interfere with the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the biggest one is to just slow down. When those emotions rise, it usually will just take a breath or two. And that's why we tell kids to count to 10, which I
Mm-hmm.
still think we should say count 10 to 1 because that's a decreasing thing. But to just take a pause until, um, the appropriate part of your brain is working instead of the emotional part. Go
So
ahead.
we've talked about how downward patterns help you to calm and upward patterns help you to get excited.
Yeah.
So how come whenever they do like a rocket launch or a bomb, it's always a countdown and the impending doom gets worse?
Ah,
This is a total deflection. But
yes. And my answer to that is because 0 is a fixed point.
uh
And if you count up, it's like, are you going to 10? Are you going to 13? Are you going to 25?
ah it
That's just
increases the imperative. Not imperative. That's not the right word.
I have no idea.
It increases the urgency because you know where it's going to stop.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
You know how close you're getting to it. But
Total rabbit trail. Sorry.
yeah. No, that was interesting. um, Actually, I'm going to use that and say if the emotions start to rise, maybe that is a time for deflection. And if you and I are having a difficult conversation, I'll say, "Oh yeah, by the way, next Saturday, are you driving or am I driving?" And then,
Right.
okay, let's get back to it. So, um, deflection isn't necessarily a bad thing. If it's helpful, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Uh, I was I don't know if this is true or not, but I like to think it's true, is that again, I just know I've been in courts a couple of times, but mostly I know like what happens in court from like TV, which may or may not be accurate. But there's always a glass of water there.
Mm.
And so if someone's testifying or at a deposition or whatever, they can pick up that glass of water and take a sip. And mostly it just slows them down a little bit. It lets
Mm.
them think before they answer. So to have some way to just pause for a minute that looks very natural and is very natural, to take a sip of water or to say, let me think for a minute. Or let me gather my thoughts on that, you know, or, to sneeze, I don't know,
Yeah.
to do something to just give yourself a pause. Actually, they say to do this in tennis. Like sometimes if you're losing, you get this sense of urgency and want to play faster and play faster and play faster.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, no, stop, turn around, stare at the wall, take a couple deep breaths, turn around and kind of regroup.
That explains that weird pacing thing you see them do when you're watching live sports, where they put their hands on their hips and they kind of turn away from the match and just kind of go
Yes.
and take like
Yeah.
six steps and then kind of go in a circle to come back.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
And I would do that in difficult, that's a difficult physical thing. This is a difficult intellectual thing. It's the same idea.
I know someone who one of her coping mechanisms for hard conversations, one appropriate, she wasn't putting her kid in harm's way, but was she'd bring her young child with her so she had an excuse to step away and do something
Mhm.
for a minute and then come back.
Mhm. I think that's brilliant. Yeah, depending on the situation, you
Right.
don't want to take your young child up on the witness box with you, but
You don't want it to be somewhere toxic, but if you're just
yeah,
having a hard relational conversation, and
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's brilliant. And again, whether it's a child or a glass of water, something where you can say, "Oh, let me just manage
Mm-hmm.
this. Let me walk around a circle, take 6 paces."
Mm-hmm.
And most people understand that, even if you've been sitting a long time, to just say, I just need to get up and stretch for a second.
Yeah.
Um, my my go-to, and I think this is kind of funny, is always uh, to uh, to either sneeze or say, "Oh, I think I'm getting a bloody nose." And like you say, you're getting a bloody nose. It's the weirdest thing. Everything stops.
Mm-hmm.
You can be you can be furious with each other, tearing each other apart, and someone go, "Oh, I think I got getting a bloody nose," and the other person goes, "Oh, really? Let me get you Kleenex."
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of,
That's a good one.
yeah. Um, so actually, it kind of goes to the next kind of something you can try. I was going to say piece of advice, but you can take it for advice or just an interesting conversation. Is in difficult conversations, I suggest to people that they have an escape plan,
Mm-hmm.
and a small escape plan and a big escape plan. Like the big escape plan to just get out of the conversation altogether.
Mm-hmm.
If it's clearly going nowhere, you just say, "Hey, I have somewhere to be."
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that place to be is just out of this room, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or, "Hey, I just, I need to put this on pause and go think about it," or "I think we should both take a break and let's just stop this
Yeah.
whole conversation." And again, if the other person um, is would easily allow for that, that's pretty easy to do. Just say,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I just need to stop talking about this right now."
Yeah.
If the other person maybe isn't open to that, then to have something external, like, "I need to be somewhere," where they um, can't really argue with that and say, "Well, no, you don't need to be somewhere,"
Yeah.
or, "Hey, I have low blood sugar. I need to get something to eat,"
Mm-hmm.
you know. So the other thing is to pre-plan those, because if you're in high emotion, you're going to forget what what might work, or it's really hard to come up with something in high emotion. So to kind of have some ideas before you go into that.
This is utilizing the same tools from the toolbox that we talked about for anxiety and stage fright and
Yes.
panic attacks.
Yeah. And it's all the
Um,
same. It's just hard conversation
yeah.
anxiety instead of stage fright. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so have like a mini escape plan, like taking a glass of water, or excusing yourself to go to the bathroom, or
Mm-hmm.
um, and then a larger, just, this isn't working and I just need to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go talk this over with whoever,
Yeah.
um, uh, whether or not I have a husband or not, or I need to talk it over with my husband. I will sometimes say, "I need to talk this over with my husband," you
It's
know,
convenient.
yeah. And it's pretty easily accepted, or, "I need to talk this over with whoever, my financial advisor. I need to talk this over with, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I need to go pray on this."
Yeah.
Whatever it is, most people will say, "All right, I don't like it," but it kind of imparts that you're not going to make a decision until you do that anyway. So why
Mm-hmm.
bother continuing this conversation?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I have used that. most recently in I was going to say buying a car, in not buying a car.
Yeah.
It's a really difficult conversation, and I felt somewhat trapped, somewhat guilty because this salesperson had spent quite a bit of time with me, and I was excited about the car, realized it wasn't a good time for me, and I said, I need to go home and check on my finances,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And he did say, well, bring that up here and we'll check it out. And I said, I have to go home and just really see what they are.
Yeah.
I can't share something with you that I don't know. So,
Tell them you keep it analog, not on a computer.
and
It's in my ledger back at home.
yes, on my stone tablet. Uh, there's not a way to make a difficult conversation not difficult at all. There are
Right.
ways to kind of make it less difficult.
Manage the difficulty as opposed to
Yeah.
mitigate it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bunch of big words, but
You're trying to impress me.
I'm just, I gotta make sure I'm still cool.
Yes.
Anyway,
And taken seriously. Yeah. I also suggest that to, if you can, take a support person with you.
yeah.
There are a lot of situations where you're I guess, allowed to bring a support person, but people don't think of it, like
Mm-hmm.
doctor's appointments.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a friend come with me with doctor's appointments because I wasn't feeling like I was clearly expressing what my need was,
Yeah.
and she understood.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like the doctor wouldn't understand it. It was just like a communication gap. And
I recently did that with my husband. He had the flu and we had to go to the emergency room. And
mm,
so I went with him into because he's half delirious. He's
mhm,
exhausted. He feels like crap.
mhm,
He can't remember everything he needs to ask or everything they tell him.
yeah, yeah,
And not everybody in the medical staff was good about facilitating with that
yes,
because I would help respond and then they'd talk at him and pretend I wasn't there. It's like
yes,
he's literally half asleep. You need
yeah,
to tell someone who can actually aid him, please and
yes.
thank you.
And there is that sometimes that perception that you're controlling him or saying things that are different than what he might say.
Right.
Uh, and, something to
One
be
of
cautious about. But
it definitely, and I can understand having caution there, but my frustration in this one was he actually passed out while being sick. And it's like he doesn't know what happened to him while he was passed out. Why aren't you listening to me?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure um, why that isn't more acceptable. But yes, you can take a support person with you to
Yeah.
doctor's appointments, to legal appointments, to
Yes.
financial appointments,
Mm-hmm.
to um, school IEP meetings, to your counselor's office, you
What
know.
I was an abnormal teenager because I wanted my mom to come into the doctors with me because I didn't know what I needed to ask sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm only 15. I'm still new in this body.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me. So I have a cancer history, and
Yeah.
going to doctor's appointments and treatments when you have cancer,
Mm-hmm.
they not only allow but kind of expect you to bring support
They
person or
advocate for
people.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Other doctor's appointments, they think it's weird. And they're
Yeah.
like, why is this different? And in any medical situation, not only are you struggling with the symptoms of your own medical situation, you're dealing with the stress, and you're
Yeah.
just one person. There are a lot of times, even like when watching a movie, people pick up different things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you can bring a support person to a lot of places that people just don't think about it.
Back to hard conversations.
Hmm.
I'm circling our rabbit trail back.
Yes.
And but still bringing a support person. I know of a situation where it was a friend of mine was asked to sit down and have a hard conversation with a pastor leader that she had had a difficulty with.
Hmm.
And she brought her husband as a support person, which is fantastic. He's a great guy. But what ended up happening in the room is it ended up being three guys and one woman, just her.
Ah,
And
mhm.
so even though her husband is on her side, communications wise, it was an imbalance.
Yeah.
Just because men communicate different than women do.
Mhm,
Purely that. And it wasn't, again, her husband was on her side. He was there to support her,
mhm,
but it still felt like she was being ganged up on at certain times because they were
mm,
just instinctively understanding each other
yeah.
and not understanding what she was putting forward. And
Interesting.
this kind of ties us into one of your other things that I know we've talked about before on this topic is power balances.
Yeah. Or perceived power balances too, because like you
Yeah.
say, her husband was there to support her, but
Right.
she kinda lost that sense of support because of just the particular people that were in that room. Yeah.
Exactly.
What can you tell me more? What happened? Did she kick her husband out, or did they kick her out
No,
and decide what they were gonna do about her?
no, none of that. It did not end well, but it had to do with the other person not being willing to accept their own responsibility
Mhm.
for whatever reason.
Mm,
And it ended with her feeling very dismissed and demeaned because she went into it and she put a lot of thought into what she said.
mhm,
But again, she's female and goes into this conversation with men, starting with "I feel" comments, which can be healthy. We've
mhm.
talked about it, you and
Yep,
I, about differentiating between "I feel this way about what you did" versus "you did that and you're a horrible person."
yeah,
That's important. But what in this case they used it against her to
yeah.
deflect, to just talk about her feelings.
Mhm.
And so by the end of it, the person said, "Well, do you feel better now? Do you feel like I
Oh,
heard you?" It's like, no, because you didn't say you were going to change your behavior.
yeah.
So it
And
did
the
not end well. And she realized after the fact she really wished there had been an even if the pastor had brought his wife or the pastor had brought
mm,
a woman from the church, something to help balance on that side of communication.
I'm curious as to why the pastor brought anyone. Uh,
He
that's an
didn't. No, she
okay.
brought her husband and her father-in-law.
Oh, I see.
But
Okay.
her father-in-law is also a deacon at the church, so he kind of bridged that gap a little bit, but they
Mhm,
were both there to support her. But
mhm.
again, it was three men and one woman and it just
Yeah. And
made
there's
it hard.
also, uh, women tend to use feel and men tend to use the word think
Mhm.
to describe both thoughts and feelings.
Right.
So a man might say, I think we need to do ABC plan, this plan. Or I think you're a jerk, which
Right.
is, I
I'm
feel
mad at you.
angry. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a feeling. And women tend to can say things like, I feel hurt, but also, I feel like we should make a plan.
Yes.
Where really they're saying, I think we should make a plan.
Right.
So
That's a very good observe.
observe,
Observe. It's
observance.
a good observation.
Um,
My grammar is gooder today.
gooder than eyes. My, um, if you can't bring that person, sorry, circling back,
Yeah.
it's our actual conversation is much shorter, I think, than our tangents.
Maybe.
But it's I think it's a good way to talk about things. If you can't bring that person to bring a reminder of that person, uh,
Mhm.
I had a pair of earrings that a good friend gave to me that I would wear for difficult conversations,
Yeah.
and it would remind me that she would have, if she were there, she would have been supporting. Oh, what's you're pointing at your necklace?
This is one of my talismans. It's
Uh-huh.
something that someone gave me that made me feel loved and made me feel like she was
Mm,
supporting my spiritual growth,
uh-huh.
and it's very valuable. And it's one of the things I wear when I'm needing reaffirmation and support.
Mm-hmm. Do you kind of touch it if you're feeling anxious or?
Sometimes, usually just having the weight of it on my chest is enough, but yeah.
Hmm. I
I mean,
noticed,
just sitting here, I've been playing with it, but
yeah. Wait, is this a difficult conversation? I
no.
didn't do this on purpose, but I found myself like playing with my ear in difficult
Mhm.
conversations when, it got my emotions kind of maybe got too high, or I was frustrated with what the other person was saying, or
Mhm.
uh, I needed to pause or whatever. And again, it was just touching that earring just made it a little stronger.
Yeah.
And even if I weren't wearing the earrings, I could touch my ear. And again, that kind of
Yeah.
reminded me that if I were wearing those earrings and if that person were with me, she would be,
Yep.
supporting me in this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Can you think of anything else about, uh, oh, one more thing that I can think of. And
Mhm.
this is probably the first thing to look at is to um, make sure that you're actually talking about or arguing about the same topic.
Mhm.
You know, are you guys, are you actually talking about the same problem?
Yeah.
And in couples counseling, oh my goodness, that comes up so often where one person will be upset about something, the other person will interpret it as something else, and
Mhm.
I can see it from the outside.
Mhm.
You know, one of my a good example of this is I had a couple talking about their budget, and they had a budget for shopping, and she did the shopping, and she spent more money that week
Then
than
was in the budget.
was in the budget. And he said, "You went over budget." And she said, "I saved us money because something was on sale and she bought it,
Yeah.
it made sense to go over budget."
Right.
So he's saying, "You went over budget." And she's hearing, You spent money poorly,
Right.
and those are two completely different things.
Mhm.
If he's saying, "You went over budget, now we have to adjust some things about next week."
Mhm.
Okay, fine. If he's saying, "I don't like what you bought," or "You don't respect the budget,"
Mhm.
if that's what she's hearing, that's different than, so that argument was never going to get resolved,
Right.
because they were both right. She
Right.
she did go over budget and she did save them money, which was
Mm.
what he was concerned about, money,
Mhm.
so but that that conversation, they just kept missing each other. So yeah, to make sure you're actually arguing about the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it tends to be talked about a lot in male female conversations, but it does happen between everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, I know my mom and I are really bad about, sometimes I'll say, okay, we need to talk about the business plan. She says, great. So I want to do this project. No, no, no. We're talking about the business plan.
Yes.
And we end up
Yeah.
doing that exact same thing.
Yeah. And that's actually another common thing where you're talking about the same subject, but
Mm-hmm.
one person is talking about an overall pattern and the
Right.
other person is talking about a specific incident.
Mm-hmm.
And then the specific incident person is saying, "Why do you keep bringing all those other things into it?"
Right.
And the person speaking more globally is saying, "Why can't you see all these other things that are so obviously related?
Right.
Why are
Yeah.
you not taking responsibility for this pattern?" You know?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's not maybe the topic, but the way to talk about that topic. Are
Mm-hmm.
we talking one specific thing? Because and the other person is there like, "I don't want to talk about that one specific thing every day."
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, difficult conversations are difficult. Do what you can to make them uh, as less difficult as possible. Is that is that grammar is me grammar correct?
I think we're just falling apart grammar
We're
wise
just
at this
falling
point.
apart.
I'll blame mine on my coffee.
There you go. I'll blame on me not having coffee.
There we go. I'll send you some of
So
mine. It'll balance us out.
I'm going to try to bring us back to real clear.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think back. Hold on, because
Okay.
you're the one who were saying it, so I want to make sure I'm understanding.
Okay.
It was. you're having hard conversations, make sure to only bring up at most three things at a time,
Mhm.
and really prioritize those. Make sure that which battle you want to fight first.
Yes.
Um, um, cut through the fog,
Mhm.
because deflection happens naturally and intentionally, both.
Mhm.
And in either case, you just have to cut through the fog and say, yes, I understand. I see what you're saying. We're talking about this right now, is the
Mhm.
short answer. Say it in whatever way makes best sense for you,
Mhm.
and not in a dismissive way.
Mhm.
Um, bring a support person, if or a support, something that helps you remember that you're not alone and you're not fighting by yourself.
Mhm.
Um, define what it is you're actually fighting. Hopefully make sure it's you and the other person against the topic, not you
Mhm.
against the other person,
Mhm.
as much as possible.
Mhm.
um, those were the big things I got out of this.
Slow down.
Slow
Take that
down.
sip of water.
Yes.
Have a small escape plan and a big escape plan to just get you out of that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Appeal to the other person's, uh,
Values.
yeah. So, uh, uh, when I talk about this with other people, I say, if I'll use you as an example. If I wanted to borrow money from you, Anna, I would say, "Oh, I really need this $10." If I want to borrow $10 from someone else, I might say, "Well, this is what I'm spending it on, and I've worked it out, and this $10 is appropriate." And to someone else, I might say, "I'll pay you back tomorrow." It's
Yeah,
depending on what that person's values or focus is on. So,
that leads me into a side tangent for a topic for another day,
okay.
which is changing your communication to fit your audience while not changing yourself.
Yes, that's a great topic idea. See you next time. No, before I say that, I do
Yeah.
want to say one last thing, and that has to do with that reading scholarly works. If you don't get it by the third time, they're not a good writer.
Yeah.
If you keep going around and around the same uh, conversation or argument, and you've said it a couple of different ways, and
Mm-hmm.
you've made yourself clear, and you've taken breaks, and you've appealed to their best values, and they're not hearing you, it's probably, or very possibly, and probably not a communication issue.
Mm-hmm.
It may be an issue of them just not wanting to do what you're asking them to do, and any amount of communication isn't going to change that,
Yeah.
or them not respecting you, and any amount of communication isn't going to change that. So if I kind of go by three, if by the third time they're just really not, you're not making any headway, they're
Mm-hmm.
not, hearing you or responding to what you're saying, then
Mm-hmm.
maybe do use that global escape. Just say, well, we're going to talk about it another day, or find a different way to
Exit.
help. Hmm. Yeah.
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 For more resources, shop at www.upandupwellness.com and hit that subscribe button. If you are in crisis and struggling right now, the national hotline is 988, and they can help you any time of the day or night.